You know, the United States of America was the greatest country before Trump, and it's the greatest country now after Trump. The white supremacists want to go back. They want to go back to the days when it was legal to own slaves.
You are about to be entertained by the ape, the young man who has become a legend of his own time. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What's up, everybody? Hello, what's happening? Greetings and salutations. It's the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program for Thursday, the 20th of November already. And we be cooking pretty soon. I'm looking forward to eating. You know, thank you, Jesus, to allow me to almost see another Thanksgiving. We still got a few days left, about a week left. But anyway, it's good to be here. Good to be back with you guys. Wow, the show last week just blew the ratings out of the water. On LinkedIn alone, 21,000+ people listen to the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program. And that's not counting the other LinkedIn, that's not counting YouTube, Facebook. I have to get those numbers. I haven't gotten them quite yet. But yeah, wow. Hope it's the start of something big. Anyway, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It's the Ron Kelly Talk Radio Show. It's November. It's the end of the year already. It's the end of the year, just about. You know. I still remember what I did on New Year's Eve. Well, I don't drink, so of course I remember what I did on New Year's Eve. But yeah, wow, it's the end of the year already. End of the year. Unbelievable. Yeah, wow. Anyway, it's a couple of minutes past the hour. It's the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the folks. I didn't know, either. I didn't know Councilman Louis Velez was either that popular or I just, had a moment. But shout out to Councilman Louis Velez. Thank you so much, Councilman, for joining me last week. Had a great time. Yeah. So I got a lot to talk about tonight. Should you be able to, and this is a good question, me coming from, should you, if you're a stepfather, should you be able to physically chastise, like we say, physically talk to, physically approach your kids, physically if they don't listen, if you're a stepfather, That's a good question. I'm going to answer that a little bit later on. Also, the jobs report, which I knew, I already knew that the jobs report wasn't going to come out this week. And the jobs report is not coming out. Why? I'll tell you in just a moment. Anyway, everybody. And also, the Epstein files, it's like the X files, the Epstein files. So are they going to be, what are you going to learn from the Epstein files? What are we going to learn from the Epstein files? Probably not much, but we'll talk about that as well. Shout out to my people at America and Porterfield Transportation. More about them in a minute, but I need to let you know that you are okay. Oh, okay. The views and opinions expressed here are exclusively those of myself and R. Kelly Media Enterprises, LLC, and are not those of my advertisers or my support team or anybody who has anything to do with the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program. And shout out to my peeps from America and Porterfield Transportation. Don't you know, for a lot of years, America and Porterfield Transportation has been your source. And we'll get to them a little bit later on in the program. Anyway, okay, who's texting me? All right, everybody, it's about 5 minutes past the hour, and this is the Ron Kelly Talk Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today on a Thursday. Chilly, and it's going to be chilly, no surprise there. Um, you know, no surprise there that it was going to be chilly. It's just that time of the year. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about tonight. The Epstein files. The Epstein files. You know, a lot of people have been waiting for that. Let me start with that. You know, a lot of people have been waiting for those Epstein files. Uh, but how much do you think you're actually going to learn? Especially, see, because you can't trust Mr. Trump. And I don't say that out of respect. But you can't trust Mr. Trump because, you know, he's got something up his sleeve. And, you know, in the consensus, for most of the people I talk to, the consensus is that he was more of a friend of Jeffrey Epstein than what it's being said. You know, that's what's being said, that he was much more of a friend to Jeffrey Epstein than what's being said, which I kind of believe too. I mean, because I don't go with the flow and, you know, stuff like that, but I do, by research, I do my due diligence, and sometimes, you know, the people who listen to my program do agree with me, and I do think that there was something going on, and it's not just Trump. You know what I mean? It's not just Trump. There's other people who were involved in that on that island. Because if you don't know, Jeffrey Epstein owned an island, his whole island. He owned an island. Unbelievable, right? Yeah, he owned an island. And I guess, you know, so the general consensus is that he owned the island so he could do what he wanted to do on his island, and he didn't have to worry about anybody coming after him. But you know what I got to do? I got to take a quick. Let me see if somebody's trying to. Arnetta, good evening, Arnetta Marshall. How you doing, Arnetta Marshall from Maryland, I think. Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna ask you guys tonight. So we're gonna talk about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm gonna ask you guys: is it okay to physically chastise, to physically, to get physical with your stepchild? We're gonna talk about that. Is it? We're going to talk about Epstein. We're going to talk about the jobs report, and we're going to, you know, and we're going to go off the rails a little bit here. We're going to talk about: is it okay to get physical with your stepchildren, and the father is still around, the original father is still around? We're going to talk about that. We're going to get to that because I'm pretty sure, you know, there are a lot of folks who have been in this stepchildren situation. Me myself included. I was married to someone who had 2 children. You know. Fortunately for me, you know, I got lucky and I approached it the right way. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that after the break. It's about 8.5 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. It's the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program, and it's on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, LA Talk Radio, Blog Talk Radio, all over the place, in the Ron Kelly Show .com. So yes. And so shout out to Arnetta Marsha. Thank you for popping in and listening to the Ron Kelly Show. I appreciate everybody, you know. And then and just last week's ratings were just through the roof. You know, I've never seen anything like that. It was through the roof. Now, you know, I don't know if everybody knew Councilman Velez. I don't know if everybody was chomping at the bit for that particular show. I mean, I hope not. I hope that it was about me, you know, to some degree, and not all about him. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. But yeah, so the Epstein files are about to be, well, actually, the Senate and the Congress overwhelmingly voted for the Epstein files to be it voted for the Epstein files to be released. Epstein files, Epstein emails, whatever it was. Okay, so Trump, see, because here's what's going to happen. You know, now he had signed the bill. He signed the bill ordering the Justice Department, which he runs, and he's not supposed to run the Justice Department. The president's not supposed to run the Justice Department. The Justice Department is supposed to be in a solo entity. You know, so Trump has signed a bill ordering the Justice Department, which he controls. See, so those of you who it's slightly believe that you're going to hear what you want to hear, you're sadly mistaken. So the president has signed a bill ordering the Justice Department to release all its files from the Justice Department's investigation into convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this legislation calls for a release of the files in a quote searchable and downloadable format within 30 days, and was approved overwhelmingly in both chambers of Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. And then Trump announced on his Truth Social program that he had signed it on Wednesday, starting the clock on the release. So, all right, so Trump has signed he has signed the legislation. Okay, Trump has signed the legislation. He signed the legislation, and so it's going to be 30 days from now. But you gotta see. let me get to this. Let me get to Steve Mayrant, my brother from another mother. Steve Mayrant says, "Don't know what was more alarming: Trump not wanting the files released, or Trump doing a 180 and wanting the files released. My first thought was, here comes debate and switch." And you're 100% correct, Steve Mayrant. You're 100% correct. And then the master says why they have taken out everything. And see, and this is the other thing too. Thank you, Arnetta. See, this is the other thing too. It's going to be redacted. You know, redacted meaning that stuff is going to be crossed out. You know, because see, I think the reason for the 180. Steve Mayrant is that Trump does have moments of clarity. He does have moments of clarity. You know, he does surrender at times. Ironically enough, he surrenders. So there was so much, there was so much going on in the Senate and the Congress, and Trump does sometimes have a moment of civility. He has a moment of clarity, a moment of, it's like a crazy person, and every now and then they have a thought of, like, a thought of sanity. So Trump does have moments of sanity every now and then. And that's the reason for the 180, Steve Mayrant. That's the reason for the 180, because he thought for a minute. I mean, nobody convinced him to release those files. I mean, don't get it twisted. Nobody convinced him to release those files. He released them. He decided he was going to release them. But he did have a moment of clarity, a moment of clear thinking, just a moment, because we all know how he thinks. And now, what he's going to release them. But you see, the files. And see, there's two different parts to this. See, the files is one thing, the files, but the charges that they now, and there's probably going to be more information in the charges than there's going to be in the files in the investigation. See, because you can't make now the part of the file, the investigation, the charges. You can't force the Justice Department to release like what they have in regards to the charges. But there is information in the investigation that can be released. So Trump, when he got, he got some clarity, and when he got the word, because I guess somebody did advise him. I mean, nobody made him decide to do this. But what he did was he said, okay, when he found out that when they put the package together and they said, okay, we're going to release this, we're not going to release that, that's when Trump came out and said, okay, that's when he came out and said, okay, Arnetta Marshall says there's something in it for him. Yes, you can believe that. There's something in it for Trump. Because he's going to make sure he comes out of this clean. But you see, now what happened recently was Prince Andrew Prince Andrew, the son of Queen Elizabeth, who passed on last year, I think it was, Queen Elizabeth. Her son, Prince Andrew, was kicked off, was stripped of his princeliness and kicked out of his princely home because by his brother, the King of England, because of his involvement in the Epstein stuff. So one body has already hit the ground in regards to the Epstein situation. Prince Andrew is no longer a prince, no longer entitled to the princely estate and the money and the pomp and circumstance, because the King of England kicked him off the rolls as a prince. So that's the first domino that has fallen in this whole thing with the Epstein files. And more heads are gonna roll. I guarantee you that more heads are gonna roll. More people. There's more people. It's not just about Trump, because Epstein was doing this for a long time. He wasn't just like something. Epstein was doing what he's been doing for a long time. He's been abusing young girls for a long time. And you can believe that Trump, no matter what Trump did, we're never gonna know exactly what he did, because he says he hardly ever knew him. And you see him hugging him, kissing him on his head, being the chummiest of chums. I don't even have a picture, and I have some very good friends. I don't even have a picture of myself kissing on them on their head. But he said that he didn't know that he hardly even. And see, and that's Trump's part of his damage control, like Steve Mayran is saying. That's what Trump does. He'll say, "Oh, I didn't know that person." That's what he does. Whenever anybody connects him to somebody of ill repute, he says he didn't know him. That's his move. "Oh, I didn't know that person." So you see these pictures of him and Ghislaine Maxwell, allegedly, who was supposed to be the gatekeeper and would bring the girls to Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew, whoever else was involved. That was but see, but there's a reason why Trump is doing this, people. There's a reason why he's doing it. Steve Mayran said it very correctly: damage control. There's a reason why he's doing this. But see, because he knows this is never going to go away. This stuff with Jeffrey Epstein is never going to go away. He knows it. Most of the people, most of the Republicans, see, because the only way for this to pass had to be if the Republicans was down with it. Because the Republicans have the majority in the House of Representatives, the Republicans have the majority in the Senate. So the only way for this bill to pass, the bill allowing the Justice Department to release the Epstein files, is the only way for that to happen would be that the Republicans had to go along with it. Now, we know we're not going to see everything that's in there. You best to believe you're not going to see everything that's in those files. You're not going to see it. So when this comes out, there's going to be redactions all over the place. Stuff is going to be crossed out. How you see it on the movies and stuff. You see the paperwork, and it's all crossed out, all blacked out, where you can't see anything. But this is what's going to happen when those files come out. I can't wait. But if you're thinking that everything is going to come out, you're sadly mistaken, because there's some powerful people from all over the world who were on that island with Epstein. It was his island. It was his place. He controlled who came and who left. Most of the paparazzi and people, they didn't even know where the island was. So you can hide out if you got money. And Jeffrey Epstein had a whole island, so there was no police, DEA, FBI. There was none of that there. It was an island. It wasn't even near the United States of America. So there was no way we could control it. So if you think you're going to see, all of these revelations, it's going to be shockwave blockbuster. No, you're not. Because Trump controls the Justice Department. His hand-picked Attorney General, Pam Bondi, in effect controls the Justice Department. Trump, last time, Trump picked people who had their own minds. He picked people based on their experience. And that's why he was changing cabinet members like we change our socks, in his first term 10 years ago, 9 years ago. So when it first began. So he learned a lesson from that. So he's saying, okay, now I'm going to get loyalists. I'm going to get people who will kiss my behind or do anything I say do. I'm going to put them in those positions. And that's what he did. Pam Bondi controls the Justice Department. Kristi Noem controls Homeland Security. No experience. Kristi Noem, no experience. Pete Hegseth, who was a Fox commentator, a Fox talk show commentator. Now, boom! Now he's the leader of the most powerful armed forces on Earth. So that's like me going from. Well, see, I'm smart though, but I could probably transition like that. But Pete Hegseth went from a Fox News contributor to the head of the most powerful set of armed forces in the world. You have Tom Homan, who took a $50,000 bribe, who was recorded taking a $50,000 bribe. What happens? They drop the case. Tom Homan is supposed to be the so-called immigration czar, sending these people all over the place to, it's just a den of thieves. Trump's cabinet is a den of thieves, except for the poor black man who accepted that job, which I wouldn't have taken it, the HUD secretary for Trump. One person, one black person. And the person that was running Latinos for Trump, where's he? On his way to Guadalajara, deported after he stuck his neck out and I could go on and on and on. Anyway, but we're going to talk about, so we're going to wait. Believe you me, I'm going to be on it for those Epstein files. I want to see what I can find out. I'm just an average American like the rest of y'all, but I'm going to see what I can find out. But tonight we're going to talk about stepchildren. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. And somewhere in this show, I'm going to talk about stepchildren. And is it okay for you to physically chastise your stepchildren, meaning children that are not yours, and the father of those kids is still around? We're going to get into that. Is it okay for you to physically go at your stepchildren if they don't listen to you? We're going to talk about that. We're going to get into this. I think that's pretty interesting. I have experience. I've been a stepfather, so my comments will be from firsthand knowledge. It won't be just what I think. Anyways, we'll take a quick break, and we'll come right back with more of this program. It's the Ron Kelly Talk Radio Show, and it's on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, LA Talk Radio, Blog Talk Radio, and the Ron Kelly Show.com. Yes, indeed, I am the man. What a news cycle this is. This guy has got to go. Trump has got to go. George Floyd snuffed out by this police officer who's supposed to be serving and protecting people.
It's the Ron Kelly Show.
All right, everybody, we're back. It's the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program, all across the fruited plain, the United States of America and beyond. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. It's November the 20th already. Next week is Thanksgiving, and if the weather holds up, I'll be going down south. Of course, there won't be a Ron Kelly show next Thursday, as much as I would like to, but I don't believe there's going to be a Ron Kelly show next Thursday. So, everybody, have a great Thanksgiving. Try not to fight too much with your relatives you haven't seen in a minute. And don't talk about politics. Don't talk about politics. American Porterfield Transportation has been your source, your reliable, safe source of transportation to and from your destination since 1980. 45 years. 1980, 45 years. They've been in business for 45 years. So, they got to be doing something right. Casino trips, school districts, field trips, family reunions, medical transport, singular transport for your child back and forth to school. You name it, they can do it. Just give them a call, 908-753-6423, 908-753-6423. Once again, 908-753-6423. Or you can email them at amica.porterfield@verizon.net. That's amica.porterfield@verizon.net. One more time, amica.porterfield@verizon.net, 908-753-6423 for the safest way to transport your people. It's Amica and Porterfield Transportation. Okay, it's 27 minutes past the hour. And we're going to get into this. We're going to get into the stepchildren. I have another topic I want to talk about a little bit later on in the program, but we're going to get into the stepchildren. Is it okay to beat basically your stepkids when they go off the rails? Is it okay? Is it okay for you to beat your stepkids and you're not the father or the mother? We're going to talk about that. But you can still, post your conversation in regards to what you think about the Epstein files. Nothing is closed off here on the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program. If you want to talk about that, we can't talk about that. But I was a stepdad. I was married to someone who had. I was married to. See, I'm telling the truth. That's why I sneezed. Pardon me. I was a stepdad. My wife, Carolyn Tucker Kelly, had. Oh boy, had two children. She had 4 children, but 2 of the kids lived with us. So she had 2 children, very young children. And thankfully for me, I never had to hit any. Thank you so much. Thank you, Arnetta Marshall. And I never had to hit any of her kids. And because I had a son who my first wife got married, because I've been married more than once, and my first wife got married, and she had a husband, and I didn't want him hitting my son. I didn't think he had the right to be hitting my son. But before I go any further, Arnetta Marshall says, well, if you and the mother have that understanding that you play the role in their lives, yes, but if their biological parent is in their life and they have any kind of relationship with them, it is something really bad, then I feel that they should be the one that would discipline them, step in and give you that respect. You're the one that is in their mother's life or their father's life, and they should insist that they give you respect. And see, it's the way you approach it. Because I know somebody, Steve Mayrant knows somebody too who got broken jaw. Steve Mayrant, you know who I'm talking about. This kid broke his jaw. Thank you for that, Arnetta. Lala Ross says, hey, Lala, how you doing? Okay, all right. Arnetta Marshall, thank you. When does sneeze? I was telling the truth. They say when you're talking and you sneeze that you're telling the truth. So I must have been telling the truth today. Anyway, Steve Mayran says, I think it's the wording that's a little confusing. There's chastising and there's discipline. I'm not talking about some fly-by-night male or female relationship. I'm talking about a long-term stable relationship. Exactly, 100%, Steve Mayran, because I was married to my second wife, Steve. Steve is a long 20-year plus friend of mine, so he knows. He met my second wife. So and see, and that's the thing. Chastising is one thing, and discipline is the other. Because the discipline is more like you putting your, you're exerting your authority when you're disciplining or hitting. If the kid's getting rambunctious and you feel like you might have to crack him upside the head. But, I never felt like, it's a difficult time for the kid, and I'm nobody's, psychologist or therapist or counselor, but, it's a difficult thing for all around. It's difficult for the mama because she winds up in the middle of the thing sometime. It's stressful for the kids. Here's some man that you don't know. Steve. I gotta put Steve was in my wedding. That's right. Steve was in my wedding 23 years ago. Yes, that's right. Steve was he's one of my groomsmen, who didn't try to talk me out of it. But anyway, Steve was one of my group. I'm gonna put that picture. I'm gonna post that picture next week. I'm gonna put it on Facebook when I can find it. It's on my phone. Steve Mayran was one of mine. Okay, let me get back to the subject at hand here. It's 28 minutes before the hour. So Steve's. It's a little confusing. There's chastising, there's discipline. I'm not talking about some. Yeah, absolutely. It's not about some dudes you let move in. You see, because it's important that the mothers have to step in too. But Steve is 100% right that if you're not married, because being married to somebody, that's a commitment. So if you're not married to the person, and you can't come stepping in there, yelling at them kids, and see, let me rewind a little bit. When I got married, I had a relationship with my stepkids. My stepkids respected me, and I didn't. They respected me because they saw what I did. They saw how their lives changed once I came into it. They saw how I put on my uniform. I went to work every day. I came back home. The lights was never off. We was never hungry. The cable was never off. They always had what they needed. Not necessarily what they wanted, but they had what they needed. And their lives got better when I came into it. And that's how it's supposed to be. When you enter a woman's life, you're supposed to make her life better. Not the nonsense that you see on social media. Not, I should be buying this and buying that and, get my nails done, pay my car note and all this. No, that's nonsense. I don't subscribe to that. Although I had paid my wife's car payment. I have got her feet and nails done and all that stuff. But I did it because I wanted to do it based on how we were treating each other. But this crap you hear on social media now, TikTok and Facebook, and you got to pay all my bills, and you want to bring your kids to our first date and all that. Knock it off. Y'all need to stop listening to that garbage because it's going to keep you single for a very long time. But I 100% disagree with Steve Mayran, who's saying that, yes, if you made a long-term commitment, you should have some authority. But it's about how you come in. It's about how you come in. And a lot of guys come in huffing and puffing, and you can't do that. You can't come into a situation and be huffing and puffing about, like you're the man now and all of that. No, because it's difficult for everybody because it's a different situation for everybody. For the mother, for the kids, there's a man that's coming into this house who they don't know, And so they're going to be resentful automatically, you know, in most cases. Some not so much, but some in most cases they're going to be resentful. It's a, you know, it's not the best easiest situation to be in, you know. So it's about how you come in, you know. Yeah, Steve Mayran did. Yeah, matter of fact, Steve was in the wedding. That's I almost forgot about that. Steve was in the wedding. My bad. Lala Ross says her second husband had 3 kids, and she had 2. Woo, they had like the Brady Bunch. My kids were well behaved, and his children were good. It was weird when I went shopping and I had 5 ducklings follow me into the store. Yeah, and yeah, sometimes it works out. Sometimes, you know, how many times you hear about the stepfather or the kid killing the stepfather, you know, or them fighting each other. And see, and you know, like I said, it depends on how you come in. It depends how you talk to them. Because no matter what they do, they still deserve some respect. You know what I mean? No matter what they did, they still reserve some respect. My stepdaughter, Nicole, I'm putting her out there. Y'all probably seen her on Facebook a lot. You know, my stepdaughter, Nicole, but she wasn't like, she was a young girl. You know, she did things that young girls do. I mean, she never stayed out all night or anything like that, but she was a little on the wild side. But she just recently graduated from cosmetology school, just recently. So she was a little wild, but she you know, when she grew up, she calmed down a little bit. Yeah, 100. That's right, Steve. Lala Ross says they're thirsty. Yeah, because you see that on Facebook. These, you know, and I get messages all the time. Like last night, I was getting messages on TikTok from women, you know, look very nice. Now I can't say they don't look good because they look very good. They look exceptional. You're not gonna be walking down on Main Street and see the woman that look like these women. But as Lala Ross said, they're like thirsty gold diggers. But you know, I think it's how you approach the kid. You know, you have to be careful. You got to have some kind of couth about you, and you have to be careful how you talk to these kids. You have to be careful. You know, like I respected my stepkids respected me to this day. They still do. You know. Their mother passed away in January, and her and I had been separated since October, since 2009, and eventually we got the papers. But yeah, so yeah. But my stepkids respected me because it was the way I came in. So how you come in, brothers, you got to be ready for this situation. You can't come in there. And see, and sometimes dudes will have resentments because they don't have a kid in the house. You know, and that resentment builds. That resentment builds. And they be resentful because they don't have a kid in the house. You know, so say she got 2 or 3 kids and ain't none of them yours. Some of the guys do get, you know, like, what am I doing this for? And some of them build resentment against those kids because, first of all, it reminds them that they had a life before you came along. They had babies from another man. And some guys, you know, a lot of guys who get into these situations are not ready to have stepchildren. They're just not ready because it's not, you know, it's not like the Brady Bunch was a TV show, you know. That's not how it works in real life. And how you come in dictates how things work out. Because when I came into my situation with my ex-wife, my second wife rather, I didn't like try to push my weight around or anything like that. You know, Steve Mayran says he walked in the wedding with Nicole. Nicole's probably taller than you now, Steve. But Steve Mayran says I walked in the wedding with Nicole. That's what I get for being short. A good time was had by all at the Brownstone in Paterson, New Jersey. Yes, it was when I got married. Second time I got married. And I'm going to get married again, Steve Mayrant. I'm going to get married again. Yes, I am going to get married again. I'm not going to die single. I'm going to get married again. 100%. Yeah, so right. It's about how you come in. But first, let me say this: La Ross said, when my ex-husband kids came to visit, he would line them up and give them a speech. After the speech, I took care of all 5 kids. Line them up and give them a speech. Wow, he was like the general, huh? Steve Mayrant said. Steve Mayrant said, "That's right, Ron. It's about building a relationship, and respect will follow." True indeed, Steve Mayrant, and that's how I came in to my situation. See, because them kids were sleeping on the couch when I showed up, you know, and shortly thereafter, we were living in a house. You know, they went from a couch to a house. You know what I'm saying? Their lives got better because of me. And I didn't buy them everything they wanted, and I didn't give them everything they wanted, and I didn't do everything they wanted me to do, but I involved them in our lives. When we went somewhere, we took them most of the time. And I didn't buy my stepkids. I didn't buy them. You know, I didn't buy them. I refused to do that. I'm not buying nobody's loyalty. You know, and to this day, because 2 of the kids lived home, 2 of the kids didn't. But my stepdaughter, I was very close to, who passed away at the young age of 40 years old, passed away several years ago. But the rest of my stepkids always respected me. Even the ones I wasn't that close to, because her oldest son I wasn't that close to, but he still showed me respect. You know, so it's about how you come in, brothers. It's how you come into that situation is how it winds up. If you come in huffing and puffing and trying to throw your weight around, you're going to have a bad, you're going to, thank you, Lala Ross, you're going to have a bad situation. I didn't come in huffing and puffing, but I came in changing things. You know, she didn't have a car. You know, I don't want to put her out there, even though she's not here anymore. But, you know, when you come in, you got to make their lives better. And I don't mean that by giving them everything, but just make their lives better. You know, show respect. You know, handle your business. Do what you got to do. I didn't come in, I didn't stay out all night. We didn't fight all the time, at least not around them. I didn't come in, you know, in the middle of the night. You know what I'm saying? So it's about how you present yourself in a step situation. Is how you present yourself that determines whether you're going to get any respect for them. Because if you come in and you ain't working and you just watching Jerry Springer while mommy goes to work, you're not going to get no respect. You got to give respect to get respect. You got to handle your business and show them kids, maybe not on purpose, but let's show them kids that you are somebody who's worthy of their respect. That's what you got to do. Arnetta Marshall says, "You're so right, not taking over the show, but show them what a real family is about." Right. You can message me as many times as you want, Arnetta, but yeah. You, it's about, right, that's what it's about. You build a relationship and respect will follow. That's how you got to do. You don't come in and huffing and puffing like, you know, a lot of us can't take a new boss. Get a new boss, he come in and huffing and puffing. You be like, oh, wait, who the hell is you? You know, we grown. So you can imagine what a kid be going through. When somebody come in and they start huffing and puffing. Represent. When you come into a step relationship, represent. I didn't have no trouble with my stepkids. None. You know, I don't know what they was thinking, but they always respected me. They gave me respect because I gave them respect. You know. So, you know, I told my first wife, I don't want her husband hitting my kid. You know, no. Don't be putting your head on my kid. You know, because that's the way we men think. Like, don't hit my kids because I'm still alive. You know, so if he's doing something, you can bring him to me. You know what I'm saying? But Arnetta Marshall says she's still, that must be an inside joke, says she's still waiting. Anyway, Yeah, not that. Yeah, show them what a real family is about. That's what you got to do when you're talking about steps. Show them what a real family is about. Don't come in huffing and puffing, because you got to get used to them and they got to get used to you. So you make it easy on yourselves. Don't come in there huffing and puffing and throwing your weight around because you're gonna have a bad experience anyway. All right, let's take another break and we'll come back and wrap this thing up. It's 15 minutes before the hour. This is the Ron Kelly. Stop, 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 I said. Stop, stop. Oh, anyway, everybody, it's the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program for a Thursday. It's the 20th of November already, 2025. Wow, time is like flying past. Wow, wow, it's just crazy the way time is going. But yeah, shout out to my peoples. My peoples back in Bursts and Memories, back in Patterson, the good old days, back in Patterson, New Jersey. And speaking of Patterson, New Jersey, shout out to Sean Williams. Sean Williams is going to be on the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program. The fiery, the fiery Sean Williams is going to be on the program. I believe it's next week. I'll let you know. Sean Williams, y'all know Sean Williams. She's she can stir it up, and she's going to be on the Ron Kelly Talk Radio program next week, I believe it is. Sean Williams. So look out for that at 11 minutes before the hour. So yeah, I was trying to look up something on my Facebook. And I wonder how my dude is doing. Yeah, Steve. Yeah, Steve. I'll holler at you, Steve, a little bit later on. Yeah, next Thursday is Thanksgiving, so no, there won't be. I don't believe there's going to be a Ron Kelly show next Thursday because it is Thanksgiving. So I don't believe that we're going to be on the air on that day because everybody's going to be doing their thing, and yeah, so everybody's going to be doing their thing that day, and I don't want to interrupt y'all. So yeah, so yeah. Wow, so black firefighter, so black firefighter in Bloomfield, New Jersey, where I live, the township of Bloomfield, New Jersey, a black firefighter is suing this town of Bloomfield for $25 million after racist comments, on the job. Wow. Wow, I'm gonna get into that. Yeah, black firefighter. And see, in Bloomfield is a racist town anyway. I'm gonna say it. Because I was in the car wash the other day, and I carry a firearm, and it must have, been peeking out of under my shirt, and I didn't notice it. But somebody called the police, and so it's still somebody called the police, and the cop comes up to me. He goes, "Where do you work at?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You have a gun?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You have credentials?" I said, "Yeah," and I showed him to him. He said, "Oh, somebody called." See, Bloomfield is, there was a study at Seton Hall. Seton Hall University in New Jersey. For those of you who don't live in New Jersey, I know I have listeners all around the country, but for New Jersey for a second, there was a study that said that Bloomfield Police Department, this is Bloomfield, New Jersey, the town I live in, Bloomfield Police Department was racist, and they pull over more blacks and Hispanics than anybody else. That was a study done by Seton Hall University, and Bloomfield, New Jersey is a racist town. I'm gonna say it. It is. So if anybody from Bloomfield is watching the program, you want to report me, go right ahead. But it is. It is. The police department is overwhelmingly white. And when I'm driving back and forth up Bloomfield Avenue and I see people being pulled over, most of the people I see are black or Hispanic. It's just like here, Bloomfield, New Jersey, and there's towns all over the country where you just can't drive at night, So yeah. So I'm gonna get. I'll probably try to check on that. Maybe I may even post something during the week about that black firefighter who was subjected to racial. It was subjected to racial talk by a white firefighter. 25 million. Okay. Back to the show. Lamont Gates says hands on stepchildren or biological. No hands on stepchildren or see, there goes Lamont Gates again. Should I start singing it Kumbaya now or later? No hands on stepchildren or biological ones. Behavioral psychology techniques like negative and positive. Lamont, that the stuff doesn't necessarily work all the time. I can't wait to see the first little Lamont Gates roll out here and see what he takes you through. You and Stephanie. Reinforcement system for children mainly. Yeah, you know what, Lamont Gates, that stuff, it works if it's Family Ties or, some of those old shows where, that stuff worked. But yeah, shout out to Mark Fowler, my brother, the screenwriter, movie aspirant. What's good, homie? Been a minute. Hope all's right. Absolutely, my brother. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark Fowler, my brother, who writes. There's a lot of talented people in the hood now. Y'all just don't know. Mark Fowler is a screenwriter, and he writes movies. So there's a lot of us we might be down right now, but we're not going to be down forever. Anyway, it's 6 minutes before the hour. So yeah, you know what, Lamont Gates, in a perfect world, in Westfield and some of these other places, P-PAC, some of these other places, that might be possible. But when you're talking about kids, especially hood kids, who go through a lot. Bad relationships, between the mother and the father, the mother and the boyfriend, drug use, poverty. These kids go through a lot. You know what I'm saying, Lamont Gates? These kids go through a lot. Now that technical that biology, by behavioral psychology techniques and those type of things probably do work in some areas. But when you're dealing with kids who've been traumatized, it's hard to, when you're dealing with kids who've been traumatized, it's hard. It's hard to get through to them because they built up walls, they built up defenses, and they're not in their right. They're not in their right state of mind. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard. It's hard to get kids to behave, especially you're in a hood situation. Now, if you live in Sunnybrook Farms, and if you're the Waltons or whatever, and those kids are more receptive to those type of things. But when you got a kid who's been, traumatized, like a lot of these kids have PTSD from all the crap that they have to go through. Lamont Gates says, I agree the environment is a strong force, but early intervention and matching the reinforcement. And see, that's the other thing, Lamont Gates, because people really don't have time to, and not to make any excuses, but people don't have time to do that. It's about 3 minutes before the hour. People don't really have, when you got so many other things going on, Lamont Gates, when you got so many other things going on, housing, food, just being able to exist, when you got those things, and most people are tied up with, I don't have any kids here, and I'm tied up with trying to live and survive. You know what I'm saying? It's very distracting. So when you have those other challenges, sometimes, which are more important, you got to figure out how you're going to pay rent, how you're going to keep the lights on, how you're going to pay for heat, food, clothing, shelter, all this type of stuff. When you have all those things going on, Lamont, it's difficult to apply some of the things that you're talking about, like behavioral psychology, which I believe in. And yes, but the environment is a strong force, like you said. The environment is a strong force. And sometimes when the environment just doesn't allow you, when the environment doesn't allow you to do the things that you need to do. Mark Fowler's change City. All right, my brother, appreciate you. Lala Ross said, I had a cousin, didn't realize he had a hearing problem. I knew he had a hearing problem because he was standing in front of the TV. Yeah, see, some of these things, don't allow you to Arnetta Marshall says, you also have to look at the ages. You come in with them, be young, as little as when they get a little. Yeah, well, yeah, because my daughter, my stepdaughter was 9, I think. Nicole was 9 or 10, and my stepkids were young. Nicole I think was like 9, and Jazz was 11 or 12, something like that. So yeah, they were young. So but they shouldn't. If after a certain age, they shouldn't be there anyway. So I'm not coming into no house. Me personally, I'm not coming into no house where you got kids there that's in their 20s. No, I'm not. I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't think I want to do that. I got to have a clear understanding, and get to know these kids. So yeah, it's harder when they're older. You have to look at their ages. Lamont says, yes, early intervention. Yeah, I agree with you, Lamont Gates. But, we got to be able to, you got to be in the right situation. You can't have all these things hanging over your head. Shelter, food, clothing, rent, gas, phone, food. You can't, it's hard to apply some of these things that you're talking about when you got all these other things going on that take precedence over that. It's very, very difficult. Okay, everybody, it's 1 hour has passed. I want to thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. You see you not next Thursday, but the following Thursday for another edition of Ron Kelly Talk Radio Show. And who knows, I may pop on and say what's up, happy Thanksgiving or whatever. So yes, thank you to everybody. Arnetta, Lala, Mark Follis, Lamont Gates, everybody who listened to me this evening on the Ron Kelly Talk Radio Show. I thank you so much for your participation. It really means a lot to me. Good night, Lala Ross, and we'll see you back here next time for another edition of the Ron Kelly Show. So until then, have a great Thanksgiving. Don't talk about politics. And and I like to, and as always, I like to say it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And that we may not have it all together, but you know what? Together, we can definitely have it all. Thank you so much.